Hey everybody, welcome back to the Sonic Chronicle. My name, as always, is Owen, and today we have another episode in the Casually in Conversation series. The subject of today's episode is Craig Pitt. Craig and I go way back. Craig is an amazing guitarist. He's a metal guitarist who tends to work within the metalcore / death metal genres. Don't let that put you off if that's not your bag, if that's not something that you're into, because Craig has been through an awful lot over the course of his musical career. He's done a lot of things. He's played with an awful lot of interesting and very, I suppose, talented bands as well. His tastes have changed and have expanded, certainly in recent years anyway, with the development of his podcast, which he talks about and I ask about over the course of our conversation. Of course, if you are enjoying this series, please do subscribe to the channel to see more of this kind of thing. Like the videos if you are enjoying them. Please leave comments in the comments section, because it's not just me that sees them and looks at them. It's the artists that I am speaking to as well that jump in and take a look at those as well. It's always encouraging for people to get that kind of feedback as well. But with that said, we're going to jump into the conversation. Please watch and enjoy, and we'll speak soon. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your evening to have a chat with me. I really appreciate it. Especially when you went to the hassle of booking studio time and stuff for it.
Thanks, man. It's a necessity, trust me. Otherwise, you just hear all sorts of kicking and screaming and madness going on in the background. So this is more of a break for me.
It's a break for you. Fair enough. I'm going to have to monitor my own audio levels here a little bit as well, because my little one is asleep in the room next door as well at the minute.
Fine,
so we'll have to keep the noise levels down. But that's what the headphones are for as well, right?
Indeed.
Yeah. But Craig, thanks for jumping in and to have a chat with me, because as I said already, when I kind of thought about having this project, you were certainly someone who jumped to mind very quickly for me. For people to know and to give people a little bit of context, I suppose, on you and I and how we know each other, I suppose. You were originally known to me as Craigles, for a long time. That's how I've known you, and that's your handle in pretty much most places, from what I understand.
Yeah.
And we met many years ago as panelists on a podcast when you were writing for a website, a gaming website called Rose Tinted Gamers.
Yeah, that one, and also EXP Game News.
EXP Game News, yeah.
Yeah, and the podcast we had, it was I think we only managed one episode, wasn't it? But yeah,
very much.
Press A to pick up. Yeah.
Well, Press A to pick up went to 2 episodes, but that was after. It was EXP Gaming, I think, was the first one, because it was a guy named Dave who was running that, and then he got you and me and Dan and himself in that Press A to pick up.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Oh, memory unlocked. Yeah.
yeah. It's been a long time though.
It has.
That was about 10 years, nearly 10 years ago now at this stage, which is a bit mad. But yes, that's how we know one another. And I think that we kind of figured out that we were both kind of into music and both had, I suppose, a musical history after that. And kind of were like, oh, well, I do this thing too. And that's kind of how we kind of started to kind of chat about music generally over the years.
Yeah, man, it's very much over Twitter. We were following one another's various exploits. I saw your release on Spotify, and check that out. You saw my many attempts to throw something at the wall. See what happens.
I mean, as you say yourself, what was it? Virtuoso, composer, comedic genius. None of these words have been used to describe me. So, the thing is, right, that about music is that it's all very, very subjective, right? And anything that you've kind of released over the years that I've kind of been aware of, I've very much been a fan of as well.
Thank you, dude.
So, this new project we'll talk about in a little bit, and we'll talk, I suppose, a little bit about the Polyester Overdose and the crack with that in a little bit as well. But I suppose before we get onto that, tell me a little bit about the Craig timeline, right, of music, right? How'd you get started playing and making music, I suppose, to bring it way back?
Let's go way back. All right, so believe it or not, the first instrument that I wanted to play was a recorder, and I was not allowed to because at the time my father worked night shifts, and so you can
Ah,
imagine that was a no go. And there
mm,
was a unspoken deal that if we got to a certain age, then guitar maybe would be okay. So hit 15, got my first guitar, started playing at school, and did GCSE music and things like that. That's where the kind of fire was lit.
mm,
And after that, I went to music. Well, there's a college near us that does music technology. So I did that, which is basically some elements of composing, some elements of production, covers a lot of bases. And the main draw of that was that I got exposed to how to record your own music. So, how to
mm.
use a DAW, USB interfaces, things like that, and started to write my own metal songs. Now, my production skills were trash back then. Oh, I should ask as well, what's the stance on profanity? Just before I drop some clangers.
Oh, don't you worry about it. You can cuss all you want.
Fucking A. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, I was not very good. My production was just a bit shit, and but it was a start, right? And I heard through the grapevine there's these people who were trying to form a melodic death metal band, which was like right up my alley.
Mm.
And so like, what we need from you is an audition tape. I was like, okay, unusual, but fine. So what I did is, as part of my college work, I actually recorded like a 4-song demo, and I sent it to them on a CD with drums and everything like that.
Mm.
And the guys were blown away because they were expecting like someone to sit in front of a tape recorder and just like strum a
Yeah.
few chords and whatnot. And so they had like a full production, one very crude at that, but it was there.
Mm.
And so they were like, "Oh yeah, come on, dude, let's jam." So we jammed. We played a lot of Arch Enemy, and it started to morph into more of a metalcore project. And
Gotcha.
that was called Lacerate. So that was the first band I was in. We had a lot of fun. It was very much a kind of, you know, tail end of the teens kind of project. Lots of
Sure.
drinking, lots of playing around. Had a few cool moments. I mean, we supported Skin Dread at one point,
Oh,
um, and only for a show. And it wasn't on our own merit. Like we had contacts who hooked us up with that. But still, it counts, right?
absolutely it counts. I mean,
It was also that.
I
Go on,
mean, if
sorry,
you
mate.
if your name is on the poster, it absolutely counts. You know.
And it was, yeah, man. So we were stoked, and unfortunately, that's also the last gig we ever played. On stage, the singer said, "This is our last ever gig," and I was not made aware of this fact. So I turned to the drummer. I was like, "This isn't our last ever gig," and he just silently went, "Yes, it is, mate." So there was a whole bunch of stuff going on there. But yeah, that,
So,
that came to an end.
but was that like internal stuff that no one has kind of spoken to you about already, or what happened there?
Well, I mean, the singer was. I mean, we fired the singer. I don't like putting it that way, but I haven't got a better term, and I'm sure he'd say it like that.
Mhm.
A couple of months before, we tried to find a replacement, and we didn't. And we had this gig lined up, and we just asked him, do you want to come and do it with us? And he said
Mhm.
yes. And I think it was kind of just time. People wanted to go off and do their own thing, and yeah, it just
Yeah,
it just kind of petered out really. So naturally, it was just at the end, which was I was gutted because it was my baby, really.
yeah. It's a real pity when those things, as you say, peter out.
Yeah,
Because you never go out with a bang. It's just like by definition, you can never go out with a bang when you peter out, right? And it
yeah,
just kind of has this real sense of longing, I suppose, associated with it when you're invested in it.
yeah. And I mean, you don't get that closure of like kind of a grand
Yeah.
send off. I wasn't expecting that day to be the end, and it was. So me and the other guitarist, a guy called Kai, were like, we're gonna keep going, and it didn't. It never
And you
found its
didn't.
feet
All
again.
right.
No. And then after that, there's another band. So there's basically three bands that are kind of pivotal points for me. The second is a band called Betray the Fallen, which was a trying to angle for a deathcore sound. So proper like breakdowns, guttural vocals, and stuff like
Yeah.
that. That was a lot of fun because where at Lacerate, what we did was we took the songs that I wrote in college and basically turned them into fully worked metal songs. Betray the Fallen was a lot of jamming, so it was kind of just turn up and rock out and see what happened. And that
Mm.
was wasn't familiar with that, so it was really fun. The guys are great. With that, there's always something. It's always drummers that spell the end to me as well for this. Um,
Just
this ended.
is this why you tend to program your own drums now? Is that
Oh,
why?
absolutely,
Okay,
100%, 100%. And also, I can't drum, so it's a difficult thing. But with this, the drummer left to become a tree surgeon, like a
okay.
full-time tree surgeon.
Good for him, you know.
Yeah, I mean, he's great at it. It's obviously a
He
craft, so
was
fair
he
play.
was branching out.
Hey, there it is.
Yeah.
Oh man, but yeah, unfortunately, we couldn't splinter off, and it just fell apart.
Nice.
Yeah, but you know, this happens. And the thing with Betray the Fallen as well is like, a lot of people who misunderstood the name. Like, Betray the Fallen to us was, oh, we're sticking it to the devil, man. Betray the Fallen one, yeah.
Okay.
And then we get a lot of people coming, what have you got against soldiers? And it's like, that's not what we're saying.
Oh, weird.
Yeah. So we had a few. I mean, a lot of it was online, but there was a few people in the flesh, and kind of had to say, yeah, that's not the intention, So we started to call ourselves like the 10-leg riff machine as a kind of a little nickname to kind of make it a little bit softer. But again, that petered out. The reason that petered out is because we were trying to find a drummer, we couldn't find anyone, and I was approached by another band called Create Chaos, who were just looking for another replacement guitarist. And that's where I joined. And so we're stuck with them for a bit. We recorded an EP, which is online, but never really officially released. We had a few decent gigs. But again, there's some internal trouble with that. Basically, a band is like being in a relationship with 4 other people. And it's really hard to please everybody. And yeah, it just again, it kind of did its time. So we split up and went from there. And after that, it's just a series of jamming. I've jammed with a few friends, tried to form projects. Some of them were, so one of them was with 2 members of a band called Amputated, who were a grindcore band or slamcore. I don't know what these genres mean. They just all sound like noise. And so, but they were some buddies that I knew. It was Kai, actually, from the first band that I was in.
Gotcha.
He was in it. And they were pretty big. I was surprised they actually wanted to jam with me, and they wanted to do this metalcore stuff called, well, I wrote another EP called Revenge Yourself, which was just a dumb title, but I like dumb titles because it sticks out. And we were going to play that, but it kind of, I had a lot of stuff that I had to deal with, so I meant I had to put everything kind of on hold. And I was like, I don't want to keep you guys indefinitely hanging around. It's not fair. So that kind of, and that died off as well. But the thing is with that is I'm actually listed on one of the Amputated albums as a thank you note. And you can find my name underneath the CD if you lift the CD up in the case. But the CD is for an album called Ingest, Molest, Dissect, or something like that. And it's underneath the severed head of a person with a ball gag. And it's like, that's great, guys, but I can't show that to my mum or anything like that.
Can't. So. You can't show it to anyone, really, can you?
No. I mean, I'm not really into that whole kind of aesthetic, but it was nice to get the mention.
It was nice to get the mention. Yeah, it was just you can't tell anyone apart from me, apparently, and whoever watches this.
Yeah, and certain people like who are in that scene. There's a name in there that they probably won't recognize. So yeah, but that's about the point where I had a few cracks of the whip, and I was like, you know what? What I like doing is writing my own songs and playing them, and it was becoming apparent that whilst that worked for me when I was a young kid, now everyone wants to have their own input, and I could never make people care about my songs the way I wanted them to. So I was like, the whole band thing, I just can't make it work with the songs that I have, and I don't want to give up on those. So that's why I kind of resigned myself, said, you know what, I'm just going to try and compose now, and moved on to that. And so I haven't been in a band per se since about 8 years ago, maybe a bit more than that. But I've been doing composing work. I said that sounds very professional, but writing tunes and stuff for when people want it. Case in point, the Press A to Pick Up jingles, that was all done by myself.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
I do the jingles for a podcast I'm part of, Two Dudes, Two Discs, which I think you're familiar with.
I'm very much
Um,
aware of that. Yeah.
thanks, thanks for listening.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's been what's kept me going really. But yeah, that takes us up to the present day.
Yeah. That's a lot there, right? So when you got your first guitar at age 15,
Mhm.
before you went to music tech school, what kind of guitar was it?
It was an Encore like
Love it.
Stratocaster copy
Love it.
from like Argos or something. Yeah,
Yeah. Did it come with the little 5 watt amp?
yeah, man, little box ones.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I, and to my shame, I say to my shame, it's not cool to say it now, but I played so much Nickelback at the time. It was
Listen.
How You Remind Me had just come out, and I was like, I just learned it. So
Yep.
that got played a lot, badly
Uh,
as well.
I learned to play Someday as soon as that came
Oh,
out,
nice.
because it was in drop D, and I wanted to learn songs in drop D. But the thing is, it
Yeah,
only uses the drop D for like 2 chords throughout the whole thing. But I was perfectly fine with that because I was training my ear a little bit to get down to D and then back up to E.
yeah,
So it did the job for me. But people give Nickelback a hard time, but I still think that Nickelback were important at that point in time for
yeah.
guitar music in general.
There's some. I'll tell you what. That album, Silver Side Up, I think it is. There's some
That is the
decent
one.
riffs. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. And again, you all got to start somewhere, right? And
Mhm.
I learned that song from a guitar magazine, and in that guitar magazine was Slipknot's "My Plague," which I also tried to learn, but the tuning the encore to drop A was not good.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
not made for that abuse.
Absolutely not. I mean, did the tuners did the tuners go that low? Did your strings go that low? Were you on
Uh,
nines or tens?
Oh yeah, it would have been nines back then. So yeah, I mean there was a lot of floppy action. That's what she said. Floppy action happening at
Yeah,
the
yeah.
time. Yeah, it was not the best move.
Yeah, I used to learn a lot of guitar magazines as well. I used to get Total Guitar a lot. Um,
Yeah,
and like sit down and listen to the CDs that came with them. That was actually my first introduction to the darkness and stuff like that as well. Um, but yeah, sitting down and looking at the tabs in those magazines and trying to play songs that I was nowhere near good enough for yet.
but that's
Um,
the good thing is like you had the backing tracks with it as well, so you got to
that
feel
is
like you
true.
were like part of the band rather than just playing along with the record. You got to play that guitar role
Yeah,
without kind of
that's true.
fighting your stereo for the part. You know what I mean?
That is true because I was fighting my stereo quite a bit. Like when American Idiot came out, and like trying to pull out the speakers just enough, like just one of the cables out just enough so that it would block the other one. So I would only get
Mhm.
one part of the guitar track coming through so I could play the other one. Yeah.
Yeah,
What a
it's
time.
difficult, man.
What a
Yeah,
time
I
to be
know what
playing
a time to
music.
be alive.
Yeah, what a time it was to be alive that you had to jury rig all these different bits and pieces.
And now
Um,
you can just download anything online.
Now you can just download anything online.
We had
Yeah,
to wait. That's the thing. You have to wait for the song, and you'd be like, every one song you really liked, there was like nine others that you've never heard before in your life.
very much so. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was rough.
Different times for sure. But tell me a bit about the Seven Sins.
Oh, that's a deep dive.
Yeah, because I had to listen to that a little bit earlier today. I listened to Pride. Pride is pretty cool, and then the overall trailer that you have of the Seven Sins on SoundCloud. There's some really cool ideas in there, right? I mean, obviously, as you said, the production isn't amazing, right? But I do think that you were probably hampered based on what you had at the time as well, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So I don't think that there's any shame in terms of the production of it. I think you probably did the best you could with what you had, right? Because I think everyone did the best they could with what they had around that time, right?
Yeah, man. That
Um,
was the drums on that are recorded with a program called Acoustica Beatcraft, and
Right.
they are literally like there's one sample for every hit. So the snare, when you do a snare roll, it's literally just like a machine gun.
Right.
And the reason I use that is because it was cheap.
Well,
I,
that's it, you know?
yeah, it was just a way of getting the ideas out. But yeah, that the Seven Sins one that you're referring to, that was basically like everyone who listens to metal. I was just fascinated with Meshuggah. I wanted to kind of do some of that polyrhythmic, polymetric stuff,
Hmm.
and that was my kind of attempt at it. So I had a guitar in drop C, and I dropped the bottom string down to G. So basically, you had the lowest strings a low G, and then the next one was another G, but an octave higher,
Yeah, yeah.
and that gives it that kind of djenty sound without
Yeah.
having this fork out for an eight-string guitar.
I was
Uh,
gonna say, was it an eight string? Because it
yeah,
did
no,
sound
it's
very low. Yeah.
that's it, man. No, it's just a six string really, and also the bass on that I think is probably. And again, this is kind of at the time I didn't really have a bass or anything like that either, so I recorded a clean guitar part and lowered it down 12 octaves, no,
Yes.
12 semitones. I mean, it's not a great way of doing that, and the mix
It's
would be terrible for it. But
it's not.
again, it was something else to happen to get it on paper, you know.
It does the job though, right? Because
Hmm.
for some of the tracks on my EP, I didn't have the bass. I like the bass that I have back there, I didn't have it. So what I did was I took my acoustic guitar and turned the treble all the way down, turned the presence all the way down, and cranked up the bass. And I was like, okay, I'm just gonna fuck this with my fingers across the top four strings, and that's gonna be my bass guitar. And it sounded pretty good, you know.
Yeah,
It kind of gave it a nice acoustic bass sound. But again, needs must. You do what you have to do to get the ideas across.
yeah. That's it, man. And I think like when you've got like a limit in place, it forces you to be creative and get around these things. Like
Hmm.
there's so many plugins and stuff out there now that you can get like option paralysis. And back then, I was literally just like, I want to record a thing. I don't have anything else. What can I do to make it a thing? So yeah, I mean that. I think with the Seven Sins stuff, it's something that I was going to revisit, and I'd always talked about having a Seven Sins concept, which is just cliche. It's like kind of one of those things that everyone goes through a phase of being fascinated by the seven deadly sins. But musically, I was interested in kind of just having a Meshuggah style thing, um, and that was my attempt at it. And I want to go back to it at some point with you know a lot more knowledge than I
Yeah,
have now.
yeah.
So we'll see, man. But yeah, I was kind of quite proud of the kind of little metric stuff that's happening in there. It's
Mm.
probably not as complex now if I go back and listen to it, especially considering how crazy things have got with like progressive metal and stuff. Some of the young bands are just insane.
Yeah,
Um,
but
yeah,
like,
man.
so Polyphia, right?
Hmm.
Um, Technically very good, right? Very like incredibly not prolific, proficient, incredibly proficient at
Yes.
drums, right? All of them, right? Every last one of them, incredibly proficient. But is it? Are they writing good songs? I don't know if they are. Right? Is the thing, right? Um, and I think that you have to try and find that balance, that middle ground of like, does this work for the song, and does this make me look class, right?
Hmm.
Because Tim Henson could do all the like weird like DJ scratches that he wants on his guitars that aren't quite the same as Tom Morello's from back in the day, right? But if it's not serving something that you can tap your foot to, then what's the point?
Yeah, it's. I mean, I always have a problem with instrumental guitar music anyway, because
Hmm.
it's usually either an excuse to do loads of solos, and then there's no kind of compositional merit to anything. It's just like, oh, look at this arpeggio that I'm doing over this big riff,
Yeah, yeah.
or it just drones on. I do like Polyphia, but yeah, it's as you said, it's like things don't really serve a song. They're just kind of it's bits of music that you put on, and it's nice in certain kind of quantities, but I can't make it through a whole album, and I don't think they can too. Like, because they've got vocalists on their album that they've just recently released, so they've
Okay.
got stuff to break up the flow. Like they've got Chino Marino from Deftones on one
Oh,
song.
wow.
Yeah, so like they know that if you have just a whole hour's worth of that twiddly twiddly guitar music,
Mm.
that's disservice to them. But you know what I mean? It's more clean than that. But
Yeah.
it gets a bit too much. So you have to break it up, and that's just something that I've always found with like instrumental guitar music. It just doesn't really appeal to me that much.
Yeah. And even then, like Yngwie Malmsteen, right?
Hmm.
Um, incredibly proficient guitar player, unbelievable guitar player, could never write a good song, right? Could play great solos, could never write a good song, in my opinion. You know,
It's controversial.
I know it is, but there's a hot take for you, right?
Yeah,
I
to be
every time that
fair.
I think of Yngwie Malmsteen, all I think is vengeance, and I'm just like, that's a bit trash, you know.
See, whenever I hear of Yumi Malmsteen, I remember the story of him kicking off on a plane where he just said to someone, "You've unleashed the fucking fury." That's the
Yeah,
only
yeah,
thing.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
not even related to his music. Just that it just sticks out in my mind.
Yeah.
Um, there's to bring someone else into the discussion around, you know, the service of the song. Like one of my favorite artists is Devin Townsend, and there's a
Oh
great
yes.
video where I think it's for Dario Strings, and he's just like doing loads of sweep arpeggios, and he's doing, look, I can do all this. It's great. It's sweeping and tapping. What am I doing? What am I doing for the song? Absolutely fucking nothing. All
Hmm.
the while, as I'm doing this dungeon master stuff, my wife's at home worrying because we're going broke. It's like it's just so pointed. Like you have to serve the song, or it's just not interesting, and you're
Hmm.
only kind of winning over the fellow guitar nerds. Which it's nice sometimes to be able to do that. But
We have our place.
yeah, yeah, we just
But
don't make any money anymore.
we just don't make any money anymore. To be fair, no musicians make any money anymore.
That's very true.
Yeah, unless you're Taylor Swift, in which case, are they a musician making money? No, I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna.
That's
Not gonna. No, that's a bit of
oh,
a
don't
question.
anger the Swifties.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
I
out for
mean,
blood.
it'll get me views and engagement. I'll do it. Um, but so we talked about, I suppose, your early days, and we talked about like your early guitar, your Encore. How long did it take for you to upgrade from that Encore?
um, it was about 3 years, because I had it all the way through the last 2 years of secondary school.
Mm.
And when I went to college, I remember I upgraded because I had a tax rebate randomly.
Ooh.
And it was like a cool, like £600 landed on my lap. And me being 18, 19 at the time,
Mm.
with no responsibilities, was just like, I know where that's going.
Yeah.
Straight onto a brand, well, not brand new, actually, it was secondhand. Ibanez, some version of an RG or something like that was in one of the secondhand shops that I
Mm.
just saw with a Floyd Rose, and I just wanted the shred guitar. And,
Yeah.
oh, it was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. I have no idea what kind of actual model it was, but the frets are a little bit bigger than your standard Ibanez,
Mm.
which usually people like kind of look down on it, like you want your kind of smaller neck and stuff like that. But I just love it so much, especially because I played in drop C in my bands
Yeah.
and stuff.
Mhm.
It just seemed to be perfect for that. I love that guitar. Didn't treat it very well though, but
I mean, no one does treat their
yeah,
gigging guitars very well, to be honest with you.
no,
Um, and I
putting
suppose
on
the
a
Floyd Rose.
show. Yeah, yeah. I mean, putting on a show doesn't necessarily mean standing still, and there was a lot of stuff that was smashed against it, like accidentally.
I mean, that's how it
But
goes.
yeah, it was brutal. Yeah, sorry, you were saying about the Floyd Rose.
Oh, I was just going to say about the Floyd Rose. I mean, that would have helped with the drop C, right? If that was your primary tuning. But anything else
Uh,
outside of that tuning, you kind of had some
yeah,
problems.
yes and no. So yeah, it kept it in drop C, unless you gave it some serious abuse, and I did tend to give it some serious abuse, which would take it down a couple of semitones occasionally. And there have been a few gigs where I needed to retune, and the fine tuners weren't cutting it, so I'd be scrambling around trying to find the Allen key to
Yeah, yeah.
unlock the locking nuts. So yeah, there was drawbacks to it, but it was nice. Loved that guitar.
You still have it?
I do. It is not operational anymore. the all the strings came off of it, and I kind of left it in storage, and the tension on the neck just snapped
Oh
the neck.
no.
So it could probably be repaired one day, but I've got it as a memento, really. so it's
Yeah,
there.
yeah. I do like having memento guitars. It's a nice
I see.
privilege to
Yeah,
have.
is that your collection behind you? Is that the full extent, or have you got some hidden away as
There,
well?
there's a few more, to be honest with you. I've got like a couple of acoustics as well. But this is my first guitar. This Yamaha Pacifica
Ah,
013,
yes,
right?
with a
Um,
humbucker.
with a humbucker. It's a super strat, right? But I love it still, right? I think that the single coils in this sound amazing, right? The humbucker isn't great, but the single coils sound amazing. And I love the neck because the neck is so fast, to be honest with you. It's just like a lollipop stick. It's so nice. But this is my first one. Then we've got this PV Rockmaster, which I bought purely for the finish. It is people will have seen this from another interview that I've done, but it's purely a Spider-Man finish.
Oh, nice.
So that's why I bought it. But it actually sounds pretty good, and it's on most of my recordings.
Decent.
Then we've got a Telecaster back there. We've got a bass, and we've got an Epiphone SG as well.
Tidy. Nice.
And I've got a Les Paul copy knocking around somewhere as well. And then, as I say, a couple of acoustic guitars. We've got an Ovation Tangent guitar as well, which doesn't sound great acoustically, but when it's plugged in, it's really good, really nice.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, it's quite the collection, dude.
It's not bad. It's been years, right? It's been 20 something years of guitar playing, right? So,
Yeah,
yeah,
you
I
collect
think
them as you go.
you acquire them as you go, as you say. And but the thing is, none of them are expensive guitars. Like the bass as well is a hand-me-down, right? So I got that for free. And as I say, none of them are particularly expensive. I think the Pacifica cost me about 150 euros, I think, at the time. And same with the Rockmaster. The Squire is probably, or the Squire Telly is probably the most expensive one there. It's like 200 and something quid it cost me. Like, but
Fair.
um, you know, I'm not one to be spending a ton of money on guitars in general. It's just like whatever works, and if I go into a guitar shop and I play it and it plays well, then I might pick it up, right?
Yeah, that's it. I've never really had like kind of a top shelf one, but I've kind of said to myself that if I can put together the money reasonably without putting myself out of pocket, I'm going to get
Mhm.
like a proper, grand worth of guitar, which will be my baby. And I just will never detune it. It will stay there. If I have to have like
Mhm.
7 or 8 strings to make sure it stays like that, it will. But that will just be like the top shelf, never have another guitar again. But
That's
yeah.
kind of my thoughts on it in general as well. But the way I'm kind of looking at it is I'm looking at custom guitar builders as well.
Oh,
To kind of be like not for anything soon, right? But like when I'm in my 50s or 60s, maybe my retirement guitar or something like that. When my old arthritic
when you're
hands,
shredding in the home, yeah, in the nursing
yeah,
home.
yeah, I'll be like, yeah, up the up the drugs, please. I'll be like, my arthritic fingers can't handle this. Can you give me more painkillers, please? Right. Um, that's when I'll get that custom guitar. But I've been looking at some really nice ones as well. And there's a guy on YouTube. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's called Giant Guitars, and his
Oh.
tagline is "They're not actually giant guitars; they're just regular guitars." Um, he builds guitars, right? And he's got this thing that he doesn't like putting two guitar or two pickups in a guitar. He only likes one humbucker in the bridge position, and that's it.
I can see the
Um,
merit for that because I really suck at changing the pickup to use anyway.
oh yeah.
So why just take it out of the equation?
hmm I mean, that's why most punk rock guitarists have taped over the pickup selector, right?
Hmm.
Um, anyway, let's talk a little bit. Aside from talking about gear, let's talk about the polyester overdose, um, which, as I said earlier, was I suppose the project that kind of turned me on to your music in general, and I love both of the songs that you've released off it, like Honest and This Here Is a Storm.
Oh,
Obviously
thank you,
having
dude.
having done the small cover, the basic cover of This Here
Yeah,
Is a Storm,
that
it's
that to this day that was still like kind of that blew my mind. I was like, oh my God, someone's actually covered one of my songs. This is incredible. Like, I know we know each other, but it's still such an honor, especially because like it's just me noodling in my bedroom. So thank you for that, dude.
No problem. I
Uh,
mean, when these songs resonate, I think it's important to kind of share those kinds of things as well,
mm.
This is our storm. So many hours, come find our way back to the shore. You may feel self-assured to find your peace of mind. What chaos happens anyway. You've got to look, you've got to look. You might feel selfish to try and find your smile. You gotta do whatever it takes. You've got to look, you've got to. Feels like there's no shelter, like there's no war. We'll see where it rains and pours. This is a storm. So many odds, we'll find our way back to the shore. It might feel selfish to try to find your peace of mind, but chaos happens anyway. It might feel selfish to try and find your smile. You've got to do whatever it takes. You've got to look, you've got to tell. Yeah, this here is our storm.
Yeah, it's cool, man. So yeah, the Polyester Overdose was going to be my other crack at the whip. So like after the free bands and writing this metalcore EP, I wanted to do something a bit more authentic because it was becoming apparent that I wrote this metal record, but I am not really a typically metal-looking, imposing guy. So it seemed disingenuous for me to be like, "All right, you guys, let's rock," you know. And I've also got this kind of background in like, whereas metal is part of my interest, there's more to it than that. You know, I grew up on a lot of like kind of skate punk and stuff,
Yeah.
and I wanted to kind of just pull from all of my influences and make something that was more kind of representative of me, because I was like, I'm going to have to be the face of this in some way, shape, or form. And so that's where the idea for the Polyester Overdose came about. I thought I'd just, again, write a series of songs and see if I could get a band together. And the lyrics around the Polyester Overdose were very much based upon stuff that I was going through at the time. It's very kind of autobiographical, I would say. Autobiographical, if I could speak properly.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was a way of dealing with a few heavy things that were going on at the time. And that was just the way I thought, you know, if I want to sound authentic, which is key to this kind of music, it has to be something that means a lot to me, and try and find an interesting way of dealing with something like that. And then I formed a band with a few friends and tried to get it off the ground. But again, this is where it comes back to, you can't really make people kind of care about your own music to the degree that you want. So what was happening with us is that I said, we don't have to have a full blown band for this. It can just be like practice once a week or, whenever. But when you're at home, please just learn the songs and we'll come to practice and we'll go from there. And yeah, it was just kind of, we'd turn it to practice and I'd have to kind of explain certain parts and go over things. And it was like, I can't fault people, because it's like, at the end of the day, you're being asked to give up the time to turn up and just play someone else's music. You want to have your own input. But at the same time, I was like, this is just never going to be something that comes off the ground if I use it in this particular form. So that's where I was like, I'll just do it as a record and approach it from there. But what I also found as part of that is that my singing technique is really, really bad. I was hurting myself to a very heavy degree.
Yeah, like I think anyone who sings in that style at some point kind of comes around to the idea, like myself included, right? It was a very hard lesson for myself as well. Like I was talking to someone quite recently, just kind of essentially saying, I think that I've done myself damage, right? In the sense that, you know, I feel like I would be a better singer today if I hadn't done that back then. You know what I mean? But it's one of those lessons that everyone has to learn, I think, to be honest with you.
Exactly. You have to do something to learn from it. Otherwise, you just don't grow. And yeah, with that, weird thing about it is that the pain that I was getting wasn't really so much in my throat, it was around my nose, because I would be putting so much pressure on the front of the face, like the mask, essentially, to try and pronounce these things. And because that's how I thought singing was, that you would kind of, you have your speaking voice, and then to actually sing, you push the words out and you have so much effort.
Right.
That's really not how that works.
It's not at all.
If anything, it's the reverse. So I mean, I recorded a couple of songs, and then I was like, you know what, actually, this is really not working. I need to kind of take care of that first and learn to do it. If I want to do it properly, I need to go and learn. So I actually took some singing lessons for about a year and a half. Tried to get my chops up. Sang a lot of like Westlife and Van Morrison and stuff like that to try and, because I couldn't just rock up and go, hey, I want to learn Slipknot. It was the lady who taught me was a gospel singer, and so that was her background. And so, yeah, she's great. Her name's Philippa Smith, and she, I can't speak School Vocal Academy or Voice Academy is the place that she does here. But she was so kind of patient, and she would like explain things in such a way that I could kind of grasp the actual mechanics of it, you know. So that really helped. But then COVID happened, and then there was a lot of home working and stuff, and I put off a lot of stuff, and yeah, everything went crazy. And then parenthood, so it kept pushing this thing back, and now it's kind of a very distant thing where I was like, I will go back to that at some point, but I haven't quite got to that yet. So yeah, and I left it at that point. So there are 2 or 3 demos out there on SoundCloud, which, as you know, I would not consider them a final version of it, because like I can't listen to myself. It sounds horrible. But
I mean, what I will say is the versions that are out there are still very good, right?
Thank you.
That I think they're like, against, like, again, I went back and I listened to some of the earlier stuff, like the Seven Sins stuff, and I listened to Revenge Yourself, and compared to them, like it's night and day, right, in terms of the production quality. So if you're telling me that you're going to, you know, have a better version again, I'm all for that. You know?
I aim to, yeah. Again, because with, I mean, going along the lines of that, the Seven Sins stuff recorded with 1 guitar. The Revenge Yourself stuff was the full-on kind of 2 guitars, bass arrangement with these really poor drum. Sorry, I shouldn't say poor drum program. Acoustic Beatcraft was very useful.
Sure.
For the £15 it was. I mean, it did a job. To be fair,
I'm impressed that you were able to find software for £15 that did what you needed.
It was good. The caveat was that it wasn't MIDI, so you couldn't export anything. So once it was there, it was there. You had to mix it down as a WAV. But then moving on to that is to, like, you know, using Easy Drummer and stuff like that, and basically just having so many plugins available that you don't know what to do with them. Like, yeah, I would say things have moved on in terms of what I can do. Yeah, so we'll see if I ever manage to do that. But yeah, I intend to do it.
I know that you recently teased a new project on Twitter. is this related to the Polyester Overdose, or is this a new thing?
So it is. The big problem that I had.
It is which.
Yeah. Yes. No,
Great.
both. Yeah, I'm being vague. So no, with the difficulty I had, right, is that I do like the metal, and I like the punk rock stuff, but I also like loads of stuff. And having decided that the band wasn't going to work for me, I was like, okay, well, I'm not constrained to do a certain style, so I can do whatever I want. But then comes the thing of like, okay, well, how do we present that? How do you market that? You know, even if we're talking like a small kind of gathering of people, you still have to think about it like, how does it look as a package? And I couldn't find a way of putting these things together until about halfway through last year, and something hit me, and I was like, okay, I think I know how to do this now. So rather than have, I don't want to say too much because people might hear it and then
mystery. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's sort of that, but also mainly because I'll say my idea, and there are people out there who are faster than me who'll be able to do it.
But you're a dad to 2 kids, so.
Well, just the one.
Oh, sorry. I didn't want to. Yeah.
I was going to say, what? Surprising that on me all of a sudden.
You are a dad to one toddler.
Oh yeah, just the one for the now. Please, I need sleep.
I know.
The struggle is real, right?
Yeah, pretty much so.
That's why I've got the energy drink. This 4 a.m. start today was not pleasant. But yeah, the what I can say is without kind of giving too much away is that rather than have the Polyester Overdose be a record by me, Craig or Craigles, and then have another sudden jump, I'm going to have a platform, say, I don't know, a format where these things can exist in their own kind of universe, where I can pull upon different styles and also mix in some elements of the writing that I've done over the years, the kind of poor attempts at comedy and stuff, and just try and mix it all together so that it's the be-all and end-all of anything. So all the half-finished projects that I've got on my SoundCloud, I can come back and pull from them, and they can exist in some form without it being a full identity. So within this format, it will just be a single song, but within the universe of the format, it's gonna be I hope that explains it to some degree.
It sounds like high concept, but also it kind of sounds like the Craigles cinematic universe.
Almost, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, almost like that. Almost like a cinematic universe. I like the feel of that. So it is that kind of vibe. And just it just allows me to wear as many hats as I want and do everything and be responsible for things. But also, it opens up the possibility of collaborating with people, because I do still want to collaborate with people. It's just that the band situation doesn't really appeal to me anymore. And plus, who's got the time now? Especially, we're both parents. I couldn't find the time to dedicate, or the resources or financial stuff to dedicate to a band anymore. And I'm not the only one. But I've got lots of friends that I've made over the years who they still like to partake in music, still like to collaborate, still like to make things, but they also don't have the time to commit to a full project or something. So I could say, hey, I've got this song. Do you want to come over and guest on it or something? And again, that it allows for that. So that's where I'm heading, and hopefully I can share some more. I want to make a pilot of some description, and that's what I'm working towards. And I keep moving it back because I realized that my guitar playing has suffered from not playing every day.
Not playing.
Many times. Yeah, exactly.
Funny
So the
works.
ideas that I've got, yeah, exactly, right? Yeah. You don't have the time to shred for 2 hours a day anymore because you're taking out the nappies and stuff. It's amazing how that rusts. But yeah, I've got to warm up a bit and get to a certain point where I can do what I hear in my head, and then I'll make the pilot, and then we'll see how that goes. So that's the general gist. Hopefully that's.
Do you think it'll happen this year?
I mean, let's hope.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing, right? I mean, the question is how long is a piece of string, right?
Yeah.
Especially when you've got little ones and like anything can happen and so on, right? Any kind of small niche of time that you might have to do different bits and pieces to dedicate to you and your projects, that can all disappear very, very quickly, you know?
Exactly. And the nature of, a solo thing like this is that for it to be successful in internet terms, it has to be regular as well.
Yeah.
And, so it's something that if I am going to do it, I can't just put one out and then leave it and then do another 6 months time, 8 months time. It's got to be, consistent for at least a short while.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've got to take a run at it. That's why I'm like, I want to do it this year. And I wanted to do it at the tail end of last year, and I've got a couple of new songs recorded, a couple of old songs re-recorded for that purpose. But I need the whole chunk. Otherwise, it's kind of pointless. If I can't release content regularly, then it will die on its ass. So.
I mean, that's exactly the reason why I haven't released any of the interviews that I've done yet, because I wanted to have this season, right, to be able to have them all done, edited, rendered out, so I can release them on a weekly cadence over the course of a number of weeks, so that I have that backlog of content. And even when I was starting to do like the release radar reviews and stuff on the channel, I didn't publicize them in any way until I had about 5 or so of them done and uploaded in there on that weekly cadence, right? So the algorithm on YouTube wasn't pushing anything out or notifying anyone about anything that I was doing, but that was okay, because when I did notify people that I've got stuff done, I've got this many videos up there, people could go in and watch them, and it would basically tell the algorithm, hey, these people are watching like this 5 in a row of this guy's videos at a time. So maybe I should push this to other people. So I was trying to play the game a little bit there,
That's it. And you do need to do that now. That's another, this is why I feel so bad for bands nowadays, because they've got to do this. I was talking to, I've got some buddies who play in a band called Ascaris, and they were walking me through their next release. And it's not just recording the music. They're like, okay, we got to release a lyric video here, and then we can do a drum playthrough the next week, and then a guitar playthrough the next week. And you've got to schedule out all this content. And it's just like, geez. Back in the day, we just rocked up to a rehearsal studio and got drunk. That was enough.
That's kind of it. We got paid in cans. We got cans thrown in the bag at the end of a gig, and then we went home and drank the cans, and then got a taxi back into town to go out for the night. That's how it went.
Exactly. Now it's all engagement, algorithms,
all engagement. Yeah.
I mean, and to go back to the podcast that I was doing, the Two Dudes Two Discs, like we are terrible at engagement and regular scheduled content, because again, we're parents and we can't dedicate the time that it requires to make it on a rolling schedule. We could do it in advance, but that kind of loses some of the magic of that particular podcast format.
Absolutely does. Like back when we used to do the gaming stuff on YouTube, myself and Dan and a bunch of other mates,
Proceed to Checkpoint, right?
Proceed to Checkpoint, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We used to sit down and do like recording sessions, right? And then like release a couple over the course of a couple of weeks or whatever. But as you say, it's draining, right? To kind of do it in batches, right? And to do it in like sit down for like 3 hours and record like 4 or 5 videos, whatever, over the course of a number of hours. And to kind of do that and to like keep the face on, I suppose, in a lot of ways, is very challenging to do that, and to remain upbeat throughout it without having to go, are you getting hungry? Do you want to go get some? Like it's like, no, we have to finish off this batch right before we can go and do stuff. It's like, oh, okay, grand, right?
Yeah.
It's just the grind, right? It's not useful. But Two Dudes Two Discs, though, as a podcast, is very enjoyable. Is what I'll say.
Thank you.
I have a great time with it anytime that I've tuned in. Granted, I will say I haven't tuned in a little while, so I apologize for that.
That's all right. Neither have we.
That's all right. But I think I was solidly listening to like the first 20-something episodes of the podcast week in, week out.
So, hey, welcome. This is a brand new podcast. And if you're listening to it, well done for discovering it. Good on you. You find a podcast, and I hope it's good.
You have dug through some shit to get here.
You really, really have. So we're called Two Dudes, Two Discs, and I hope you didn't discover us by accidentally typing a spelling error into Google, and you were looking for another kind of podcast, because that could be quite disappointing for you. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some albums. We're going to each pick an album every week or every 2 weeks or whenever this happens, if technical stuff allows us to. We're going to talk about that album. And first of all, I better say hello. My name's Liam, and I'm joined by a man who's recently become a father, and that's in the child terms, not in the religious terms. Craig, hey.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's actually both. I've got my father. So took a long word. Yes, thanks, man. I am entering the world of being perpetually shattered, and I couldn't be more thrilled.
Amazing. So
what I found was it was quite useful for keeping up to date with different types of music as well. So like poppy, for instance, that's how I got introduced to poppy. I think you recommended it to Liam to listen to poppy. And that's how I got interested in poppy and bimbo core in general.
Yes, that is a thing now.
Yeah. Do you find that podcast as a whole is useful for you in keeping up to date with music, or at least increasing your sphere of influences?
Yeah, definitely. So Liam, he frequently does DJ sets, so
Yes.
he has to be aware of these things. And so just through that, he'll recommend something that's come across his kind of radar. And I just don't have the time to check out the stuff like that. So it allows me to be exposed to these kind of bands and stuff that I would normally keep up with, but I just don't have the time to do so. So that's cool. But also, it forces me to listen to something that I wouldn't normally do. Now, part of the thing with the podcast, my background is metalcore with a bit of progressive rock and then all sorts of weirder stuff. Liam loves his sleazy glam rock and horror kind of horror punk stuff. So every now and then, if we want to annoy each other, we'll dip into that catalog and give them, give us something. And that's forced me to kind of be a bit more open-minded. So when Liam's giving me, Got Hard, or there was another band. Well, yeah.
Misfits are a bit punkier, though. So
yeah, I don't mind Misfits, but like, Wednesday 13, for example.
Wednesday 13.
Yeah, the singer from the Murder Dolls. Yeah, he wears a lot of hats now, but yeah.
Wednesday 13. Was he in? So he was in the Murder Dolls, but he was in another band as well. Or was Joey Jordison in the Murder Dolls?
Joey Jordison was in the Murder Dolls with him. Yeah, he was the singer for the Murder Dolls. Before that, I think it was Frankenstein Drag Queens from Planet 13.
Oh, yes, that's right. That is correct.
And they adapted a few songs as part of the Murder Dolls. But Liam loves him. And he gave me an album of his to listen to. And I didn't really like it. But again, it kind of makes me... I have to separate the opinion from the kind of, I guess, the critics. So it's like, so it's not to my taste, but we need to put that aside and think, okay, how does it sound production-wise?
Let's look for the good.
Yeah, exactly. Or even just like on a technical level, how is this album put together that I can appreciate or kind of critique, which is separate from the fact that I just don't enjoy this kind of music or this isn't to my taste. And that was challenging. And I found sometimes that some of the other cheesier stuff, I mean, there's one band in particular I cannot remember the name of, but they were a proper 80s style power glam metal kind of thing. And it was just, I was trying my hardest to be like, I don't like it. I don't like this music, but it was just so dumb and happy that it kind of won me over. And I was like, you know what?
Steel Panther or something?
It was similar to that, but it was like they were 100% serious.
Oh.
So, like Steel Panther played to last, these guys are kind of also like, they're just really part of that. But yeah, man, I was like, I can't fight it anymore. I just have to admit that I'm having a good time listening to this. So it does challenge you. And then likewise, I've been able to kind of give Liam some pretty out there stuff. I gave him Black Star by David Bowie.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, and because he would never listen to that on his own, and to be
Such a
fair,
good
I probably
album.
wouldn't listen to it. It's such, yeah, exactly, right?
Great record.
It's just there's so many layers to it, and
Hmm.
even more like because he knew what was coming.
Exactly.
Like
It
it's
makes it
very
that
kind
more
of
poignant. Yeah.
exactly, yeah. You can see the craft. He was making it with that in mind, and it's just that kind of the artistry involved in it. Like
Hmm.
that's I love when you discover a band that's like or an artist who thinks about everything that makes up a song rather than just here's some pretty chords, which is fine.
Hmm.
But when you step into that world and there's like either lore or they're drawing upon some kind of uh, mystic kind of mythological kind of influences, and you can delve into that outside of the album and go, oh, they're using this as a metaphor. Like that
Yeah.
stuff's amazing. So yeah, and we traded off on that. So yeah, it is good. It is good for forcing you to listen to stuff that you wouldn't, and also keeping up on the certain things.
What's your take on the state of modern metal?
I think it's in a good place, but someone I forget who it was, but someone on Twitter said that basically bands don't really exist anymore. What you have is one or two people making the music, and then there are the people who are part of that who perform it and they have the show. And I feel like that's really accurate to what happens with a lot of bands nowadays.
Hmm.
Especially as you've got a lot of bands that don't really have a lot of the original members. There's usually a kind of core group of people.
True.
They're not sitting together going, "Oh, what can you bring to the table?" Like an example for this. In fact, this guy's just left. But Arch Enemy, um, the melodic death metal band,
Yes.
they had Jeff Loomis from Nevermore, who was he's an
Oh, yeah.
amazing guitar player. Yeah.
Mhm.
And he writes some amazing riffs as part of Nevermore, or did as part of Nevermore. But he was never allowed to write songs because they didn't sound like Arch Enemy. That was always it had to be done by Michael O'Martin, the core members.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, and that's fine because they have to stick to that style. But that's what I mean. Like a band is driven by a kind of core vision,
Yeah.
and then the other people around it are kind of, I don't want to say interchangeable, but they're there to help.
No, I get what you mean. It's nearly what happened with Slipknot as well recently, right?
Oh yes.
And you can even back to Metallica, right? When Cliff Burton died, right? They brought in Jason Newsted, and it's like, no, Jason, your place, right? Get in the corner, Jason, play the bass, and we'll mix it down real low so no one can hear it, and it doesn't matter on Injustice for All, right? There's definitely figureheads, right, to every band, right? Who are that cohort who direct things, and anyone who, as you say, like kind of leaves and then someone else joins, they're either the other or they're integrated entirely. And if they're integrated entirely, they probably still don't have quite enough of a say anyway, right? But at times, I think that bands need that, right? For the reasons that you're talking about, I don't necessarily agree with that because, bringing in someone new, it can evolve your sound, right? And that's not necessarily something to be afraid of, right? What they're probably afraid of is alienating the current fan base, I imagine, right? That they don't want to change things up too much because this is their product and this is how they package it, and they push it out and people love it, and that's great, and that's fantastic. And maybe there's the fear there that if they kind of change up anything at all, then they lose that cohort of that fan base or whatever. But
yeah,
I think that if they do have those figureheads and they're strong enough to kind of take those ideas and go, okay, these ones are pretty good, these ones aren't as good, maybe we can look at this, maybe we can integrate this, let's jam it out, let's deal with this. I think that would probably put them in a stronger position in the long run.
Possibly. I mean, I'm just thinking about the bands that you've got like have just taken off really kind of in a big way recently. Like for example, Sleep Token. That's primarily one or two dudes with the other two guys playing as a live band setting.
Yeah.
I think, and even like Bring Me the Horizon, you've had Ollie as the director almost of the whole thing. And I think, well, they've just had Jordan Fish leave, their
That's
keyboardist,
right. Yeah.
and he helped kind of shape it up. But again, it's kind of usually a couple of people who have the main kind of style or the main vision mapped out. In my personal opinion, but like at least in bands that tend to kind of break through to a certain kind of level of success. I mean, I don't disagree that adding people's influences to something makes it more interesting, and
If they're
I
suitable,
would have,
certainly. Yeah.
yeah, exactly, yeah. But yeah, I feel like definitely if a band is going to be breaking through, it's usually driven by a couple of people's vision, and they probably won't let people taint that, so to speak.
Do you think that that's something that might hold you back, right, with your projects, or has held you back with your projects?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
So when I say, like, when I was with Betray the Fallen, it was very jam orientated. That was a lot of fun, and to kind of we felt freedom to do that, and I could still bring ideas in. I could still write stuff at home. If I wanted to form a band now, then yeah, it's a total obstacle because no one wants to kind of turn up and have their part dictated to them.
Yeah.
Especially like we're at an age where you can't afford to do that. You want to have your own input.
But also because like you're not already a package, right? You're not already this product that's being sold, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So if someone were to kind of come in and like slot into that and be like, oh, well, I'm immediately going to start making money off of this, that's a completely different story.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like it's not that I'm against it. It's just that what I make in terms of what I compose, it's kind of very personal to me, and I don't usually want to give up that control over what I'm making. When I was in a band, I would be very happy to kind of put forward a song as a whole and say, here is my song, and then play someone else's song as well. I think now I'm at a stage where, I couldn't really have a jam and have that be my input because I get carried away. Yeah. And I feel like I just want to kind of do the things that I have in my head. It's not to kind of it's not like my ideas are better than anyone else's or anything like that. It's just that the way that I like to work is, like if I have a riff and I can't make it go somewhere else, that riff gets cast into the bin, or at least the backlog.
Absolutely.
It's when you can hear the whole picture, that's when it's satisfying. And to me, when you bring a riff to a band and then someone else adds their bit, you're forever going, I wouldn't play it like that. And it's that kind of, you kind of have to either be okay with accepting it's now no longer your baby, or you kind of resent it. And I think I'm wired up in such a way, and it doesn't sound nice, but like I just can't let go. I mean, like what I do.
It's one of those things, right? That as creatives, it is very difficult to kind of let go of those things, that especially when it's something that hasn't been created in a room with a number of people, right? That this is something that you've created on your own, right? It's easier to do it when it's done as a collaborative experience from the get-go.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. And I think that's the key thing. When you're trying to retrofit something you have, like an idea you have, and then do like almost like a design by committee, it just feels wrong. But if you, as you said, if it's the organic kind of creation as you're all together, then it makes complete sense. But yeah, I can't unhear something in my head, and that I think when I was 18, 19, in my 20s, I could swallow that a bit, or at least try and make it work my while. But now that I'm in my 30s, it's that kind of like I only have so much time, and I have to use it on the stuff that I really get passionate about, rather than try and crowbar what I've wrote into someone else's work and be happy with that. I mean, it's just I just have to kind of work to what I hear in my head.
Absolutely. You know, I get it, right? I was jamming out with mates before, and they knew that I like wrote stuff and recorded stuff and that kind of thing. And they were like, "Oh, show us how to play one of your songs there, and we'll give it a go." And I was like, "Okay, but you won't do it right." Right?
Exactly.
So I showed the guitarist how to play my part, and I played, or the guitar part, and I played the bass part, and then the drummer was like doing something really basic. I was like, no, you don't come in until this part on over here, right? Because that's how it works, right? That's the song. That's how it's been written, right? And I just felt like such a dick, you know, just being
That's
like,
it.
how can I tell these people what to do, right? When it's a completely different mindset, right?
Yeah.
Different mindset.
And to people who do not play instruments or write music, this is going to sound like the biggest dick move. But to people who do, they'll know. Because there's nothing worse than going, hey, I think we could do it like this. You're like, no, that's wrong.
Yeah.
It's just,
Yeah.
it's just
nice thought.
you get
Not
so
how it's written.
attached. Yes.
That's not the song. Yeah.
I think it sounds better like this. No.
You can think that all you want, but that's not the song. So play the song.
Exactly. You're wrong.
You're effectively in a cover band now. All right. So just play the song the way it's been written. You know.
Yeah. I mean, that's it. And again, it's that's why when I was trying to form a band and it was becoming apparent that it just wasn't going to work because people don't want to do that, and I really cannot fault them. Like I don't want to sound like a dickhead about it because I will sound like a dickhead by going, they didn't want to play my song, and so that's why it wasn't good enough. It's not really like that. It's like the reality is that I've got an idea and I need in my head someone to come in and go, okay, I will rehearse at home on my own time your song, and then we will play your song, and then we will be great. And that is not something that anyone in their right mind is going to do because they only have a certain amount of time themselves.
It's a tough pill to swallow. Yeah, certainly.
It is.
Again, unless someone's getting paid for that, you know.
Exactly. And I'm not at a level where I can pay someone to do it.
Not at all.
So,
not at all.
So that's why I reside in the online space of writing my own music in my bedroom, so to speak. And I was spoiled because, like I said, Lacerate, the first band I was in, I wrote most of the songs in college, presented them to the band on this demo format, and then we worked it into the actual song. But it all came from that. And so that was the dream to me. I was like, oh, this is so cool. I created something, and these people have the ability to make it flesh.
Yeah.
And I'm forever craving that. We just do not have the time. Everyone wants to have their own stuff, which I can't fault. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I always think that I was very, very spoiled with my first band as well. Not from a creation perspective, but from a standard of musician perspective. They were all incredible musicians, and I will always look at them as the one that got away. But anyway,
it is though, isn't it? Because sorry, go on. I'm derailing things.
No, I was just going to say, like, coming back to Two Dudes, Two Discs. I noticed on your socials that there was talk about BBC being involved.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit
So,
about this, and we'll not dig into it too much if you're not comfortable with it. But
oh no, it's fine. It's fine. So, and this it was part of a missed opportunity because, again, we didn't kind of have something together in enough time. But Liam was actually approached by one of the um, I don't know how you would describe them, but I'll say showrunner, but I don't know the correct term,
hmm,
of a radio show around here, and they were like, "We'd be interested in talking to you, and you could then play some songs from our playlist and basically sell the podcast to people, and we can upload a podcast episode to BBC Sounds, and we might be able to kind of do something there." And that was interesting for us, and yeah, I think we missed the boat, unfortunately. Partly because I just was again so busy with other stuff that I couldn't do anything. Because part of for an episode of Two Dudes to Disc, you've got to make notes, and
mhm.
we were listening to full albums at the point, so it was like an
Yes,
hour long
yes.
album that you have to listen to multiple times,
Mhm.
make notes. Then I would make jokes, or at least attempt to.
Mhm.
So I wouldn't script things, but try and make observations and make gags, and then once you record the thing, then it's the editing of it as well to try and make
Yep.
it sound presentable. I wrote the music for it as well, so I had to put in any jingles and stuff, and it's such a lot of effort to get it to turn around in a short amount of time, and we just missed the boat. But there was a kind of happy ending to it because Liam actually did get interviewed by the radio station anyway,
Very good.
because he had he was doing a DJ night where I think it was Disney meets punk or something like that.
Yes, I saw this on Twitter. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So they were interested in that, and then as part of that, he mentioned the podcast, and unfortunately, he said, "Oh, we are going to make new episodes. If you're listening, Craig, we are making new episodes. You have no
Mhm.
choice now." I've said it. I was like, "Oh, fine, I'll
Yeah,
make some
yeah, yeah.
time," and we did.
Y-
We made I think 3 more episodes after that. But that was the opportunity. I don't know if there was kind of maybe it was just hey, we got BBC Sounds. You could try and upload it, and it was never going to be a sure thing. But yeah, we missed the boat. Unfortunately, it's just one of those things. And
Yeah.
there's not a lot of stuff that we've got from the podcast for free or anything like that. So whenever we get the kind of something thrown our way, we're like, oh, what's this? What's this?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
You're like a
I
dog
mean,
that's been given a bone,
yeah,
like that,
exactly. Like we said on the first episode, like we can be bought.
Y-
Absolutely can be
I know
bought.
you
You know,
did.
just
Yeah.
let us know.
Yeah, yeah.
So one of the things that happened as well, there was a band in Bristol called Raptors who they're going to be huge. They've signed with Metal Blade Records, and they're really kind of getting momentum now. So I think go really big on a national scale. And they had an album release party, and they invited us to it. And we didn't see the notification until like a couple of days before. Like
Okay.
on Twitter, their singer Simon messaged saying, "Hey guys, we love that you like us. Do you want to come down?" And we're like, "Yeah, absolutely. We totally want to do that. We don't get anything for free. This is great."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
Rapturous.
then we missed that as well because that's where parenting came in. There was a parenting thing that we had to attend to, which again is just the nature of the beast, really.
I mean, that's
But it
that's
was
what being a
nice.
dad is about.
Yeah, exactly, man.
Dropping
You got to
everything.
kind of, you got to, and that's I don't regret it one bit. I
So,
upset about the missing the opportunity because, man, that would have been cool. And the guys seem to be really kind of appreciative of the fact that our small amount of listeners know
mhm,
about them because of us.
mhm.
But it was so awesome to get that opportunity and get like that invite because yeah, we don't get nothing. And
Yeah.
but it was more like they heard us, and we were full of glowing praise for them, and they actually took the time to listen to us and be like, "Oh yeah, hey guys, that's cool." And it's like,
Yeah.
"Oh man, that's just like a nice acknowledgement." I really kind of appreciate it. So
Absolutely.
when we couldn't take them up on the offer, it kind of felt like we were going, "Yeah, nah, sorry guys, we can't be fucking bothered." It wasn't the case at all. I was just like, "No, please, we still like you." It's
Yeah.
just reality is in the way.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like, are the Rapturous folks, are they like in their 20s, early 20s by any chance?
I think they're around the same age, maybe a little younger than me. So yeah,
Oh, really?
latter
Okay.
half. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I think that they know.
Yeah,
Everyone has their own stuff, and
but equally, I
no,
suppose if they're around our age, right, in the back half of the 30s, at the back nine, then
yeah,
they know what the situation is. But equally, I suppose they've probably been grafting at this for probably 15 years,
oh
if
yeah.
not longer.
Definitely, man. I mean, I found them because one of their guitarist Harley followed me on Instagram when my Instagram was less about baby spam and more
Mm.
just trying to practice licks and stuff. So that's going back a few years, if anything. So that was pre-COVID. I mean, what we're 4 years away
Ugh.
from that. I know, right? So yeah, I mean, there's always long grafts, and there are. I know so many musicians that are now starting to make waves and break through that
Mm.
I've had the kind of pleasure of knowing for many years. And some I went to school with, and I know they've been grinding at it for, like I said, 20 years,
Mm.
and they're now starting to get somewhere. It's a huge investment of time. And you
Absolutely.
really have to kind of commit yourself to doing nothing else but this. Has to be almost like singular in vision.
Yeah, yeah.
So like I'm really proud of those guys. But I'm also like, I couldn't do that.
I certainly can't do it today. Like if I could
No.
have done it at any point, it's a long time ago. You know.
Yes. Yeah, that's it. And I think that's, again, you got to live for it. You got to want to put it above everything else. And there was a time when I was like that, but as things went on and as my responsibilities grew, I was like, I actually don't. And that's a really kind of when you have that conversation with yourself, and you're like, I don't really want to do this anymore because I'm not where I feel I could be.
Yeah.
That's a sobering moment, but it's also kind of quite liberating.
I mean, look, it kind of gives you that opportunity to kind of focus on other things then, right?
Yeah.
Like I stopped playing, well, I stopped gigging for 10 years, right?
Mm.
Because I had changed, well, my first band had finished up, it had done its thing. I had left this covers band because I didn't want to do covers anymore. I wanted to focus on my own stuff. And then I was like, okay, let's focus on my own stuff. So I got to writing. And then I was like, now let's start to gigging. And I couldn't get gigs, right? Because it was just me, right? With an acoustic
Mhm.
guitar at a time in which, rock and metal was the thing, right? Ed Sheeran hadn't come along yet, right? to play Wembley one man with a guitar in an arena, right?
How money he must earn from that. But yeah, go on, sorry.
It's crazy, right? But that hadn't happened. The culture hadn't changed yet for me to be able to get a foothold in any capacity. So like you see stuff on the Sonic Chronicle Instagram of like me like being super young, no beard and all that kind of stuff, right? Playing guitars solo was because I was friends with the guys that I was opening for, right? So they just let me open for them, right? Which was great. It was good fun. And it was good practice. But I didn't get it through like the graft. I got it through knowing or being mates with a band and like them just going, "Can I open for you?" And they go, "Yeah, sound." And then I eventually go on to be the lead singer of that metal band, right? So that's just how it goes. But when that finished up, I lived where I was living for a few more years and writing and so on. Not really playing much, and then going and moving to another city and then having no connections at all. And then trying to get gigs there was a whole other thing because everyone had already made their connections in that scene, right? And
Yeah, man.
I was very kind of fortunate to kind of get back into gigging when I did and just kind of like seeing opportunities and going for them. Because after 10 years, I was like, I'm going to do this again. I'm going to play a couple of live gigs. So I did. I played like 4 gigs in a year in like 2018. And then 2019, I played 5 gigs. And I was like, if I can keep increasing that number from year to year, perfect. And then, of course, 2020 happened.
Oh,
and
yes.
it is what it is. Everything dried up. And now, obviously, I am a dad as well. I'm in the club, bam, right?
Yeah, man.
And
Represent dads.
representing the dads, yeah. And now this is my creative outlet, right? Doing this kind of thing to try and have chats with people and listen to new music and try and push a few people who I listen to and like So yeah, that's where we're at the minute.
It's good, man.
But
And
it's
you
tough.
hit on something very important as well. Like, so it sounds very doom and gloom when you say, "Oh, I don't want to do this anymore." And the romanticism of having a band and playing around and stuff, you kind of, when you feel like you don't want to do that anymore, it can sound like it's a horrible thing. But you're putting that creative energy into something that's more sustainable and
Mhm.
allows you to do other things. So this kind of podcast, you can chat with people and you kind of give your reviews and stuff. You're still exercising that creative kind of muscle, if you will.
Yeah, exactly.
You're keeping that alive, and then through there, you still have the opportunity to do music and creativity, and there'll be gigs as well if you want them. But it's that kind of I was at the point where I was like, I'm just throwing money at a wall.
Yeah.
And getting nowhere fast. And every time I was in a band, it would implode. And it was that kind of like, I don't think this is a sustainable way for me to do anything like this anymore.
Mm.
So yeah, it sounds worse than it actually is.
Absolutely. I mean, at this point, I've got a few more people that I want to get on and have a chat with and kind of figure things out with. But one guy that I want to chat with, I want to ask him specifically about, you've like done so much in terms of like gigging and recording music and making loads of connections, and he doesn't gig anymore. He doesn't write anymore, right? Which, in my opinion, is a real shame because I think he's an incredible songwriter. And maybe if he has a chat with me, then we'll talk more about that. But what I want to know about is considering management, right, for bands, right? If he has all the connections, then why not look at that and look at that other avenue to again keep the oar in the scene, but not necessarily be front and center, right? And to try and like build a business out of it that way, But anyway, there's lots of avenues. There's lots of elements to music that people don't necessarily think about. It's wild.
Yeah, man. There's more than one way to skin a cat, as they say. There's more than one way to pluck a guitar.
100%. Anyway, look, I have chatted through my full list of things that I wanted to chat to you about, and you touched on some things about or in there that I was going to bring up before I even wanted to bring them up. So that's fantastic. Anything you want to plug before we wrap up?
Oh, this would be a great time to have something to plug, wouldn't it?
The Craig Cinematic Universe.
Yeah, that's coming. We'll see. Yeah, I should probably make a page for that. I don't know. What I have been using is to a callback to the Betray the Fallen stuff. I've started to use two-legged riff machine for this project because again, it's a dumb name, but it's just fun.
Yeah.
And that will be what I use for whatever this project turns out to be. So if anyone is interested, follow that maybe. But aside from that, I mean, there's the podcast, Two Dudes, Two Discs. There might be another episode next year.
I mean, we've just started 2024.
I know.
Cool.
I'm setting the bar low.
Okay.
But yeah, no, not for myself. But I will kind of say there's a few like buddies of mine that are doing really well, and I feel like I should shout them out as much as possible.
Do it.
Because yeah, so for example, my buddies in the band Ambrius, they played Bloodstock, and there is a video of them on YouTube playing the Sophie Lancaster stage. I'm immensely proud of them because I've known them since I was 15, even before that, really. But yeah, so it's been a long time coming, and they've been in various iterations of their band, and this is the latest, and they're doing really well. There's also Broken Joel, which is the vocalist from Create Chaos, which was the last proper band I was in. So he's in that with some other people. They're doing pretty well for themselves. Grief Ritual. So I should say that Ambrius is like kind of progressive, operatic power metal. Broken Jaw's punk pop. No, sorry, not punk pop. Punk metal. I hate that I said that. Punk metal.
It's fine. I'll never watch this. Don't worry about it.
You don't know that. And Grief Ritual is my buddy Dave on bass. He was also part of the Scaris. Grief Ritual are kind of very hardcore, kind of. I guess the closest comparison I can give you is like Knocked Loose, something like that.
Okay.
They've played a festival near here called Arctangent, which is becoming a pretty big deal. There was Devin Townsend headlined that not too long ago, so they're getting to places that are pretty good, man. And like I said, I'm immensely proud of them. I live through them vicariously in these
Nice.
respects.
I mean, that's kind of how it goes as well in a lot of ways.
Well, you have to, because I've been there where it's like you watch people have success and you can be bitter about it and be like, it should be me, damn it. But
You support your
it
friends.
isn't about that. You have to support your friends and you have to kind of celebrate their achievements.
Mhm.
And sometimes it just means that you got to kind of just be a cheerleader for them.
Absolutely.
Don't have to be involved in everything. It's not always about.
You're not the main character.
Exactly. Yeah. I've only recently come across this concept on Reddit recently, like not the main character, but there's like threads of people who think they are the main character, and I'm 100% happy with being a supporting role in live music.
Mhm.
So if I could shout them out and hopefully help, they will. Oh, and Raptors, by the way, because why not?
Raptors.
Raptors. I'll hold them out again.
Raptors. Raptors.
Actually, no, it's Rxptrs. Because
Rxptrs. Okay.
yeah,
Because
it's metal as fuck.
But Craig, thank you so much for having a chat with me, and I suppose for also being very, very open and honest about the different elements that come with music, and those realizing that in much the same way that I did, that like maybe some elements of music have kind of passed you by a little bit, right? But there's still an awful lot out there, right? And it's just about doing it on your own time scale as well, right?
Yeah, man, you're so welcome. Honestly, thank you so much for asking. And it's nice to kind of have my belly tickled. Okay, it doesn't happen often nowadays, but yeah, just to kind of discuss music is still a huge passion that I have, and I've like I said, some of the stuff that I say it may sound a bit doom and gloom, but you get to this stage in life where you work out what works and what doesn't, and a key thing is not putting loads of wasted effort into something that isn't really doing it for you anymore. Like there are people who they still have that passion for going out and playing live, and they want to be in a band. And I say to them, if you have that, you should put all that you want into it, because you'll not be able to sleep at night if you don't. But there are also some of us on the other side of the fence who are like, you know what, I've had a crack and I've tried to make it work, and I've actually now at the mind where I don't want to, but I still love the creative process. I still love the language of music, the composition, and it's still vital to kind of hold on to that and explore it as an art form and still be involved, because it's even if nothing happens with it, it's creating art and rebelling against this bleak, horrible world in some way.
I mean, I think that we have an awful lot to offer from perspective, having lived through like a lot of it as well, right? And getting to that realization as like grumpy old 30-something-year-olds, right?
Right, yeah.
We
get off my lawn, kids.
Exactly. Yeah, we've got advice to offer, I think, and that is value in and of itself as well.
Yeah, I'll drink to that.
I'll drink to that. If I drank these days, which I can't because I've got a child now.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'll open up a 0%. I'll open a 0% beer and pour one out.
That's the thing though. On that note as well, I have found that I don't drink alcohol that much anymore, because if I do, my sleep isn't as good.
Yep.
That's when I knew that, oh my God, I'm hitting middle age. I was like,
100%.
I'd rather not, because I'd like the deep sleep.
Yep.
So,
absolutely. Yeah.
The old fartdom.
To the too old fartdom, indeed. But yes, you have been Craig, I have been Owen, and that is our chat. Thank you so much again. And if you like this video, this to the viewer, Go ahead and hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, etc., etc. All that stuff helps. But what helps the most is engagement. So if you leave comments and likes, that helps the most. But Craig, thanks so much. You have been a gentleman, as you have been with every interaction that I have ever had with you over the years. And hopefully Two Dudes, Two Discs gets a new episode out soon, because while I am catching up on the backlog, or I can catch up on the backlog, I would like some new content as well, please, and thank you.
I will certainly see what we can do. But honestly, thank you so much. It's a pleasure. And yeah, it's been awesome.